Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Meet Zinnia.
You are being very polite to someone who is attempting to kill us.
Her wife, Saffron.
You know I'm wildly, madly in love with you.
And their best friend, Goldie.
Glad we didn't miss all the fun.
Swords in hand, they defend their city from the worst of humanity.
I am Lord Buxton Blue.
Equity Electric.
Herr Haig. Virgil Walcott. Vicious Suave.
Follow their adventures on the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society audio drama podcast. Available now at truestory.fm/swashbuckling.
What's up, most excellent friends?
It's Chrissy and Nathan from the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast.
It's a podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian
And their most excellent guests
adventure their way through the 80s movies we think we love
or might have missed
with our grown-up eyes to see how they hold up.
Join us for delightful discussion,
Rollicking recaps.
ratings, and deep-cut recommendations.
Plus, members get some extra fun chit-chat with the hosts after the show.
Download the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast today at truestory.fm.
Or find it wherever the finest podcasts are stored.
And do remember to keep the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast motto in mind.
Be excellent to each other and...
Party on.
Party on, dudes.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Generations podcast. Today is one of our special bonus episodes, normally for members only, but since it's the first of the year, we're making it available to everyone so you can see what happens if you get that fat membership that everyone's always talking about. It's so good. You get these bonus episodes. Once a month, we have the Star Wars Book Club where we talk about different books from Star Wars and talk about what they add to the canon and how important they are and how they give us different meanings of things and all sorts of great stuff like that. And today, though, as part of kicking off 2025, we wanted to back up a bit and spend this episode talking both about some of the particular books that are coming out this coming year and what we're excited to cover as part of the book club, but also just why it is we love books in general as part of Star Wars. You know, and I think this sometimes can be surprising to people because when you think of Star Wars, I think for a lot of people, the first thing that comes to mind is the amazing visuals, the lightsaber battles that are incredible to watch, and the starships fighting with each other and blowing up the Death Star and going on trench runs and doing things outside of the first movie that I'm sure are also interesting, but that's the one that's forever emblazoned in my mind. And of course, reading a book, like, your imagination can give you a lot of that, but it's not the same experience. But obviously, for all three of us and for a huge number of other people, the books are one more great way to experience Star Wars, and that's what we're here to talk about. So, Erin, let me start with you. What is it you love about the books of the Star Wars universe?
I love the internal dialogue. I love being in a character's head instead of just observing their behaviors and what they allow the world to see, even though some people are very apparent in their behaviors and what they're feeling, aka Anakin Skywalker.
My man.
But for the quieter characters, and especially for the clones, okay, when I talk about Star Wars books, and when someone asks me why I love Star Wars books, it's Karen Traviss's Republic Commando series. That's my number one personally, for the way that she redefined what it meant to be a clone, because when we see them in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, they're kind of these faceless, not feeling machines. They're very similar to the droids. And she gave them so much life and really delved into what it meant to be a clone. And so I especially love Star Wars books for this series. This is what really got me going on it. And then since then, I've read so many good books.
Yeah, that's awesome. Alex, what about for you?
Yeah, so I think that when I was younger, especially, Star Wars books were a way for me to kind of keep the series, the universe more alive for me, because when I was growing up, we had 6 movies and we had the Clone Wars, and that was it. And that was wonderful. I loved everything I got from it. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like there was so much more to explore, and I had so many questions and so many theories and things. So like the expanded universe books really kind of like opened the door for me into those, like, what happens beyond these 6 movies? What else could there be? And then since Disney has bought them, all these other books that like give you the ability to like fill in some of these gaps where like they're just impossible to make enough shows to cover all the gaps and all the little plot lines you could follow and things you might not even know what you want or could need, but just end up being so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like like the Thrawn series, like for me, like even though they're different from the EU Thrawn, like just bringing him into canon and then you bring him into Rebels, then Ahsoka. It's like turning book characters into live action characters is a really fun pipeline too that I feel like we've gotten to see recently. And yeah, I don't know. I think the books are just really fun for that reason.
Yeah, I think you're both so right. For me, it really is that inside the head perspective. And I do love the lightsaber battles. I do love the spaceships, and this is a complaint that I have across all kind of, fantasy, science fiction, comic book media, is that I'm often a lot more interested in the talking than in the fighting, Like I think the best way to have Marvel Civil War would be, Tony says we have to have some accountability, and Steve says, well, sure, but those accords are terrible. And then the two of them sit in a room and discuss like what would be a better set of accords to do something like that. Instead, we get these great fight scenes that everybody loves. Erin is shaking her head. But I would love that book. I would love that in-depth conversation from all of them about how, like, what should happen when something, a terrible accident happens and Scarlet Witch kills people by accident. What do you do in that situation? That's not going to make a good movie or TV show. But in the same kind of way, like Darth Plagueis was, I had originally read the original, my first books were those original Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire books that I read when I was pretty little,
Classics.
10 to 12 or 13. Loved them. Later years, I will reread all the Thrawn chapters and everything like that. I tend to skip most of the parts about like Han and Luke and Leia because it's still, there's something about reading those characters on a page as opposed to like, when I have them so far in my head. That doesn't quite work for me, but it works for a lot of other people, and that's great. But then it really was the Darth Plagueis book because, and here we're still talking about the extended universe canon, but that book really, and we've done a whole episode on it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it allowed me to see how does someone fall to the dark side and how does the dark side slowly like build everything up. I know other people really love the prequels. I'm on record that they're not my favorite movies, although I certainly come to have a much better understanding of them. But in the same way that Clone Wars makes them better, I think that book makes them so much better because it helps you much better understand what is happening, what's going on in those times that Plagueis is slowly like manipulating people, and how is it that Dooku falls to the dark side and all this other stuff. And just getting that internal side of the struggle that you're never going to get on the page. Because as you said, Erin, we get to spend that time in someone's head. And I just think that because of that, we get so much more to the canon and to the stories and characters that I absolutely love.
It's even worth it to read the novelization of the movies, actually, I find, because you do get like little extra snippets of like what's going on in the characters' heads. And also to your point, Matthew, yeah, if they released a book that was literally just like minutes from Senate meetings during like the last few sessions of the Republic or like the new Imperial Senate, oh, I would eat that up all day long. Just literally just minutes from the Senate. I just want to know the political backlog going on. But like you said, it wouldn't make a good movie, but it would be a fun book.
Right? I'm here for it. And we got some of that, Bloodlines is another one of my favorite books, and it is about Princess Leia, but at a different point in her career than we've ever really seen her. But it's mostly about like Senate machinations in the New Republic, and it's so good. And yeah, there's some adventure stuff, but I remember kind of being like, okay, this is the go chase people adventure. We can just skip this part. Other people loved it, and that's great. I'm not saying a lot of these books have like incredible fight scenes and action scenes and stuff like that. But for me, yeah, I just want the Senate politics. Well, and Erin, talk more about those Republic Commando books. How did they change the way you understand the clone characters in the Clone Wars, especially?
So for me, the Clone Wars I watched when I was very young. And so the clones, my understanding of them was from like a very young perspective. I read these books when I was, I think, like 14 or 15, so like a little bit older. And I had never actually stopped to think about like the reality of war. Because, it's like this fun thing, and there's lasers, and there's lightsabers, and pew pew. And then to get this perspective of these clones are 10 years old.
Right.
They're designed to age quickly. They have the like social abilities and world knowledge of a 10-year-old, plus what you would need to know to be like a green beret or like a top tier Marine. Like, and so one thing I loved about this book is it's from the point of view of there's a Padawan. I think her name's Etain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that's how I think that's how it's pronounced is what I mean. I know that's her name. And then 4 commandos from inside all of their heads. And Etain is very lost within herself. She has no confidence in herself. She's not a very strong force user. Like, she's barely above the level of people that would be turned away from the temple and asked to help grow plants. Like, she is not good at this shit. And she finds herself on this planet. Her master's been killed, and these commandos are here, but she doesn't know that. She doesn't know what clones are. She's been there since before the clones appeared. And she's in the forest and she senses something. She senses a child, like a spirit child, a child that's really uneasy and even in pain. And suddenly, this huge guy comes out of the woods, and he's in, Mandalorian style armor on this planet far away from the, civil war going on. There is a mercenary who is Mandalorian. So the only place she's seen this armor is the man that killed her master. So she's terrified, but she, in the back of her head, she's still like, where is this kid? Like, I need to help this kid. And the guy like takes her and starts drowning her, and then like holds her up and is like, ma'am, will you listen to me? Like, I'm ready to report. And she was like, who are you? What is this? And then on what a clone was, what the war is, and the fact that she's now a commander. And the battle she fights of what she knows to be a Jedi versus the titles of commander in general, and just the idea of a war leader. She's so mind blown. She doesn't understand this. Throughout the entire book, every time they call her commander or turn to her for guidance, stop looking at me. You're the ones with experience. I don't know shit. And part of the book, is her getting her confidence back and realizing she does have her own power. But a lot of it is also the clones realizing that Jedi don't know what the hell is going on. And they do kind of have to take the lead in situations like this. And so I just loved kind of fleshing out both aspects, both the Jedi and the clones, right away after the Battle of Geonosis, and kind of on their first missions or just discovering what a clone was. Yeah.
Those books really changed not only how I saw the Clone Wars TV show, but so much else of Star Wars and really any kind of military world, in fiction, because and in our own world, because so much of what I feel like they're about is first of all, the way kind of grunt soldiers are treated as cannon fodder and the like, but also this idea of that, we're taught that like things are, war is going to be this kind of basic, simple, the artillery is going to fire, the tanks are going to go in, the soldiers are going to go in, we'll have the chain of command, everything will be like, just follow your orders, everything will be fine. And so much of those books are about, wait, this doesn't always line up. The idea that every Jedi is going to be far better as a soldier and thus should command every clone doesn't always work. The idea that you'll always have, a master along with a Padawan so that you can have a good chain of command doesn't always work. The idea that you'll always know what to do because you can always be in contact with headquarters doesn't always work. And, it's an old cliche, the idea of war is hell, but like Star Wars has always been about, like, look, the big glorious fight, blow up the Death Star. This is great. This is wonderful. Our friends die. It's sad, but it's all clean and nice, and the good guys win. And this really introduced the idea that war is horrible, even if you have what you think of as a totally noble cause. And by the way, even that might not be the case. And like, I don't think I'd thought about it until I read those books. I don't want to get just stuck on those, but there's just an example of how it kind of broadens the thinking. The way the clones wind up kind of being pawns in between this fight between, as the Empire, the Republic shifts to the Empire and becomes hunts down the Jedi.
And if I can just say one more thing on that book, what I loved was that immediately these clones, this squad that we're looking at, they're a like patchwork squad.
Yeah.
All of them were in squads of 4. They went to the Battle of Geonosis and their brothers died. The people that they trained with from day 1, the people like the type of squad that we saw in season 3 Wars with the Domino squad. These people are close, and that's immediately gone. And now they're told, well, no, this is your new assignment. These are your brothers. Go on, go do your mission, and expecting them to work in that same unified way. And so all of these clones are really distrustful and jaded, especially towards the Jedi, because they know the Jedi's like they were only on Geonosis to save the Jedi.
Right.
So yeah, I loved how everyone in the book had this distrust and this such good turmoil for her to work out in the book and the whole series, just kind of looking at all of that.
Right. Alex, what are for you? What's a way in which like something you read has affected the way you've seen things in live action or on screen Star Wars?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like a lot of my reading has been non-canon books, and I've gotten just more slowly into the canonical books. But I think like some of the character-based books for me, like for example, like the second Thrawn book, I think it's called Alliances, where it's like Thrawn and Anakin / Vader. Like you kind of flash back between Thrawn with Anakin, Thrawn with Vader, and it kind of gives you Thrawn's like really analytical perspective of the individual that is Anakin Skywalker and the individual that is Darth Vader, and how they are similar and different. And it just kind of like made me see Vader in a little different light and made me think about him a little more critically and analytically. And like it kind of like, because obviously the originals were made before the prequel movies, but it made me like even better see the way that Anakin's passion and traits and love and dedication to his friends was twisted and turned into what Vader ended up becoming. And also even books that like I might necessarily have like loved, but like still enjoyed enough, like Tarkin gives me a deeper look into like what Tarkin's brain was like. What was he thinking? Like how did like just you get to see these other sides of characters and get inside their heads, like y'all were talking about. And I think that's really cool because it lets me, especially like I love getting in the heads of these villains and understanding better, like how do they justify what they're doing? Like what is going on? Like, do they think that they're really justified? And like Tarkin really thinks that everything he does is justified for the grand order of the universe. So those are just things that like you wouldn't ever pick up from Peter Cushing's brief performance. So
Yeah, I haven't read the Thrawn books yet. I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But
They're so
just
good.
hearing the people that I love talk about how much they love those books and just the depth it gave to the Empire and made all of these characters, like you said, Alex, that were on screen and like were great, but they only had a certain amount of screen minutes. And just really being able to fully understand the characters. I mean, it's just awesome. I got to
Yeah.
bring one of my friends to her first Comic-Con, and she got to meet Timothy Zahn and have him sign all of her Thrawn books, and she was like losing her mind. It was amazing. It was really fun.
Yeah, I had Zahn sign that Thrawn book of mine. He's so Timothy will sign any book for free. Like he's like, if you want me to sign like a Pop Funko or some other weird thing, $10, but it's not a lot of money for an autograph. But then he's like, if you want me to sign a book, free always. And I'm like, love that.
Yeah, and for me, I think there's two things that really come to mind about having not only just books that I really loved and treasured and that gave me better understanding of what had come before, but also just have, I think, changed the way I see things that have come after. One of them is the Queen's Shadow set of books. I think it's Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril, and then one other that name I forget. That are all by E.K. Johnson. These are a great set of novels. They start with a young Princess Amidala, a young Queen Amidala, as she is like going through the beginnings of the Naboo crisis. And they really they give you a much better picture of what's happening on Naboo during all this time. And also therefore give kind of another fun dimension to the Phantom Menace. But also they just give a great exploration of the world of what is it like to be royalty? What is the political systems on Naboo? And what is it like to be a young girl in that world? And there's this great sort of dialectic that the book holds between all the politics and stuff that are going on, as well as her being like an 11, 12, 13-year-old girl over the course of the books who goes through the things that kids of that age go through. And like, you learn so much more about her handmaidens, like characters like Sabe and others who are the ones supporting her and surrounding her and pretending to be her at times. And like all the stuff about how I think it's pretty easy to kind of write her off as a character in a lot of ways, because I don't think she's very well portrayed sometimes. Like I think Natalie Portman did her best, but it's just not the best writing or directing. But she's often there to be a foil, to be a kind of character plot point for Anakin. And instead in these, you get to see just how much like the fact that people just look at her as kind of vapid because of the incredible makeup and hair and dresses, how much they're using that to their advantage for espionage and to advance the causes that she believes in as Queen of Naboo and then as Senator for Naboo. So to me, those are fantastic. And then the other one I want to lift up is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. We've done a whole episode on it. I won't go into too much, but it's about young people who become pilots within the Empire and who then come to understand what the Empire is. And first, it really it helped me much better understand why, if you were on a planet that had been just torn apart by the Clone Wars, the Empire come and bringing stability and fixing the economy and like bringing back these things, making the trains run on time. There's a reason why fascism is so appealing to a lot of people. And not only that, I don't mean like authoritarian types. I just mean like bringing order out of chaos has a lot of appeal. And it shows how people can get seduced into that, even to the point of seeing the Empire at its worst, and the way the characters will completely believably find a way to justify it and to tell themselves this isn't like, I hate this, but this is why we have to do it. And it helped me understand like some of the characters in Andor so much more. It helped me give me a better understanding of how to understand Mandalorian and some of those characters, and just the whole idea of how is it. I think from the beginning, it's easy to think of the Empire as just jackbooted, nameless, faceless thugs who all have to die. And I'm not in any way justifying or saying anything good about the Empire, just that book really kind of shifted my perspective on, yeah, this is how people can think they're doing the right thing and wind up going down this path that they become Imperial soldiers and don't realize how evil they become.
That's a really cool premise for a book. I really like that. Is kind of a look in at the foot soldiers who don't really know what they're getting into, seeing what Luke could have become. It's like, oh, it's a stable job. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I'll have to check that one out.
What would have happened if he did get to submit his application early,
Should have let him go to Tashi Station. No, but I was just gonna say that I think that's the power of books in general is like, and it's for me. I mean, I'm gonna like extrapolate this to another like series. Like I love the Percy Jackson books. I grew up with them. They're like some of my favorite books ever. And I like the series that is Disney have put out. I didn't hate it. I didn't like love it, but I liked it thoroughly. But I think that no matter what, they could have made a perfect verbatim dictation of the book. It could have been amazing in every way, but it still would have been missing something. It would have been missing. I'm not inside Percy's head like I am in the book. I can't hear his thought processes. I can't see like what he's thinking at any given time. And then in the following series, getting the perspectives of Annabeth and Grover and Piper and all the other characters, like it's just, again, it would be nothing against the shows or the production of the live action. The actors could nail it. Everything could be wonderful and perfect. But there's just something special about the way that a book can put you into a character's head, and you really get to understand them as a person because you're hearing their inner monologue, just like we go around our lives with our own little inner monologues. It's just different. I think you can connect the books differently than you can to visuals, and but not to say that they're like better or worse version of media. It's just different, and I think really beneficial to the overall Star Wars universe, because in the movies we get all the like. I would rather watch a lightsaber fight on a screen, but I would rather read a book where I get to hear like what's going on in their head as they're going through that fight. So it's like you get different things from the same content, basically.
I think it's a great point. I think one of the things, therefore, I really enjoy is when it does have like characters on the page are reflecting on things that happened in movies and TV shows and stuff like that. Now, I want to start shifting our conversation to talk about what's coming out next year. But first, we've been But first, we've been tossing the word read around quite a lot, and I don't know if that's actually accurate. Alex, how do you consume these books?
Well, in a perfect world, I would sit in a hammock on a 70-degree day and read it. But as we live in the great state of Minnesota and it was negative 19 degrees 2 days ago, I tend to use audiobooks. I'll listen in the car as I'm driving because I have a lot of assignments I have to drive to an hour plus away for work. And even my little commute, so just, a few chapters here and there lets me consume it. And you get to hear it from like interesting like voice actors. Sometimes they have like, you know, and not Star Wars related, but like Andy Serkis does some of the Lord of the Rings books, and Bruce Springsteen is doing his own autobiography, like voice audio. So you get some really cool voice actors as you listen to books. So that's my new favorite way to, I think, consume books when I'm not able to sit in the sun.
Yeah, I am paler than pale, so I don't want to sit in the sun, but I do like getting to sit down with a book on my phone. But most of the time that I consume books, it's the same way. I'm listening while I am driving, or while I'm doing dishes or cooking or things like that. And I've just found that I'm fully all in on audiobooks. And for me, at least, I think for a lot of people, the way that I consume books is through Audible. Audible.com is a great way to get Audible. It is a great way to get audiobooks. It does all kinds of great things. I found that if you have both a Kindle and an audiobook, if you have both a Kindle and a audible.com subscription, you can like listen for 2 hours and then pick up your Kindle. And if you link the two accounts, it'll go to exactly the part you're at and vice versa. I love Audible. And if you want to get a year subscription to Audible, in which you get, among other things, one free book a month, no matter what the book is, 200 pages or 2,000 pages, you can get that through the link in our show notes. Sign up for a 1 year subscription. I think you get like 2 months free, and then you get to decide. But whatever you do, if you do pay for that 1 year subscription eventually, not only do you get a great deal, but you get to help support the podcast. We are sponsored by audible.com. So it's just a great thing to do, way to access a lot of these books, one free book a month, and help support the podcast as well, which is something that, of course, we always help you do. And if you're members, of course, that's something you're already doing. So thank you so much for that.
Sorry.
Erin, do you listen to books on tape?
Yes, I do. My preferred way to read a book would be like curled up on the couch. However, my several spinal injuries do not want me to do that. So I listen to audiobooks while I exercise or while I drive.
Fair.
Or while I shower or while I do anything, really. I love a good audiobook.
I like it.
It helps stimulate the ADHD, y'all. If you got that ADHD.
It really does.
Get the good old audiobook, real helpful. Scratches the itch.
It's so true.
Like when music isn't cutting it, when music isn't stimulating my brain enough, I need to listen to people speaking. So yeah. Audiobooks are great.
It's good for that. It's good for when you're like, something's happened in your life and you need to like get the voices in your head kind of out, not literal voices, you know what I mean? Although literal voices could help too. But like, you need to stop your own thoughts going round and round. Books like that can be great. Personally, for me, exercising, I'll generally start with a book on tape. Then for the last 10 minutes, when I need to push hard, I switch to right-wing radio because the anger just gives me that push to, keep going.
Oh my God.
Otherwise, books on tape, definitely do that.
So wild. I did not know. That's crazy. I love that for you.
It works. Same thing if you're driving late at night. You're worried you're going to fall asleep. It'll like Rush Limbaugh will just, give you that.
Just make you angry. That's a fascinating concept.
And I would crash the car. Like, don't piss me off while I'm driving. I'm going to go off the bridge.
So anyway, back to the main topic. We have a lot of great stuff coming out in 2025. Skeleton Crew is already done. I can't believe that. Andor season 2 is coming. A lot of other great projects are coming. But among other things, we have a lot of good books coming. We took a look through it. What are you guys excited about in terms of books coming out this year that we're going to be covering on the book club for the podcast?
Oh, I want to let my podcast co-host, who literally named herself The Mask of Fear, speak on the book that she's most excited about.
Yeah, so the book that I'm most excited about is Sanctuary, the one about Bad Batch.
Not The Mask of Fear?
It's not The Mask of Fear. It was just a cool name.
Okay.
That book also sounds awesome. But no, anything Bad Batch, I am there. Like, I'm already expecting to be just gut punched by this book, and I can't wait. There's no really details, and it's still not like officially confirmed, but sources say it's on its way. So I just can't wait for more tea about the boys and our badass girl,
Yeah, it's called The Bad Batch Sanctuary. It's set to come out on August 5th. We don't know much beyond that, but I imagine that the book club for August will almost certainly be about that book. So stay tuned for that.
The one I'm most excited about is probably the Mask of Fear. Actually, I love me the era between like the era of the Empire between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope is one of the lesser covered periods. Not that like it's not well covered, but lesser covered is what I'm going to use. Overall across the board in the Star Wars universe. You know, and these books, it's a trilogy. It was the first one coming out at the end of next month, February 25th. It's by Alexander Freed, and it basically is going to focus on Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, Saw Gerrera. So like some of like those like grassroots freedom fighters that we've gotten like, you know, little glimpses of in Andor and little glimpses of in Rebels, and like, you know, I'm excited to like really get to dig in, because especially with like the way that Mon Mothma has been portrayed in the first season of Andor. Like, I just want so much more of her. I mean, and more Bail Organa and more Saw Gerrera. Just it's cool. It'd be cool to see like also how Saw Gerrera got to where he's at in Rogue One.
Yeah,
real curious if like these trilogy books help fill that gap as well. But yeah, I'm just excited. I think that's a really interesting thing. Like I said earlier, like I would take literal notes from like minutes from the Senate. This book seems like I might be getting some minutes from the Senate. I might be getting to hear some what's going on in that early Imperial Senate room, which really does excite me. So
yeah, it's funny. We've gotten like the first couple of years of the Empire through Bad Batch, although that's again still a very limited perspective. And then we've gotten the last 5 years through Rogue One and Andor and Rebels.
Yep.
But the only thing we've gotten of the in-between time is Solo, which again is like kind of a fun individual story, but doesn't give much of that the background. And the fact that this book, The Mask of Fear, comes out February 25th, and the Andor show comes out only 2 months later in April, I have imagining that part of what the book is going to do is set up some things that, you know, again, not that you have to read the book to understand Andor, but probably it'll just further deepen some of the things that we're going to see in Andor. And I just love that kind of crossover. And I'll say in that same idea of that kind of crossover, there are 2 books that I'm particularly excited about that are both going to be tie-ins for The Acolyte. Acolyte was a show that, you know, that we all talked about. It had its problems, but really, really loved and wanted much more of the story and of the characters. And we're getting 2 stories. One is The Acolyte Wayseeker, and this is written by Justina Ireland, and it's described as one last story for Vernestra Rowe. So it's set 20 years before the events of Acolyte. And so this is going to be about like Vernestra, what was she doing, kind of connect her character from the High Republic books to her character in Acolyte. We got teased the idea that Keimer had been her Padawan, and I think it's very possible we're going to see some of that going on, or we're going to see more of like Keimer's early years, which might also, like, if we get to see Keimer fall to the dark side, we might get to see more of Plagueis or understand more of what, you know, is Plagueis in his life already? How does all that connect? So I don't want to put too many like assumptions on that, but I think it could be really exciting to get more of her character. And then another, which is also a High Republic book, but is about 2 of our favorite characters from The Acolyte. The Crystal Crown is a young adult book starring Yord and Jecki. And it's about one of their early adventures when Yord is a Padawan, and the 2 of them, you know, I don't know if it's going to be super relevant, like tell us new details about the Acolyte story itself, but I think we're just going to learn so much more about their character, about their relationships to each other, about their relationships to their masters. And yeah, it's just all things that are probably going to make me want to go then and rewatch The Acolyte, because it will have so deepened my appreciation for that story and those characters.
There's gonna be a lot of really good books, and I, as I've kind of mentioned a little bit in the past episodes, but I'll be at Star Wars Celebration in Japan this year, and I'm hoping that maybe there's some panels on some of these books coming out, and I can come back and report a little bit. I mean, I'd definitely be doing a debrief report when I get back. Don't y'all worry.
Yeah.
But like,
for sure.
but I'm hoping that like maybe there's some reviews about books, and I mean, well. Hoping there's reviews about a lot of things. I better be seeing a Mando Grogu trailer. I better be seeing an Andor first episode, but I also want some info on the books. I just want all the stuff I can get while I'm there.
Yeah, the first episode of Andor comes out 2 days after that.
Which means they have to show me the first episode, right? Like they have to. Like I don't care how long I have to wait in line for the panel. I'm gonna get in that room and see that episode and cry with all the other nerds that are there with me.
I imagine they will, and we'll have to figure out when to record because you're going to be very jet lagged, and I'm not going to care. We're going to record on Andor as soon as it comes out. So
I was gonna be like, we're getting you in front of a mic before that episode is released.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it all out. So
yeah, don't worry. I'll be back Monday. I'll do it on Monday.
Nice. Yeah, Erin, do you read any of the comics?
I have not delved into comics yet. I was gifted an Ahsoka comic, but it was so beautiful. I just didn't want to like ruin the value and take it out of the package. So I look at it a lot, but I haven't actually read it yet.
It's very Erin behavior.
That's fair. What about you,
Thank
Alex?
So it's funny. I have not read like a lot of I've read some of the comics, specifically some of the Vader comics, but not like kept up week to week. What I have done is read the plot lines and synopsises on Wikipedia in math because I want to know everything that happens in the Vader comics.
I mean, that's
can't
fair.
keep up with them because there is so much interesting stuff that happens. Like, are you I'm sure that y'all are aware, maybe you're not aware, that like Vader finds the other former handmaidens of Padme, and then he finds her grave and like sees her ghost and almost tries to revive her. And apparently the comics set up the fact that Mustafar is regrowing, and that's why you see it that way in episode 9. Like, there's just so much actual real implications that happen in the comics that just so many of us, including myself, are probably unaware of.
Yeah, this is going to be the year that I try to pay a lot more attention to the comics, and I had the same problem when covering MCU stuff. I wanted to read comics. My brain does not process visual information very well. I'm just not. It's not a genre that speaks to me, so I have a lot of trouble with comic books. So I might do a lot more of what you're talking about, but I'd love if we can get a guest on who can talk seriously about the comics, because I do think there's so much interesting things happening in those as well that I would love to dock into. I will say, Dr. Phasma, is it Captain Phasma? No, wait,
Captain Phasma, Dr. Alpha.
Dr. Alpha. Thank you. I was like,
Afra.
Afra.
I didn't
Not
even
Alpha,
yell.
Afra.
Anyway, I know about Captain Afra because they did a novelization of the comics about her as a kind of book on tape that is phenomenally well done. She's a great character. She's bisexual. She's a disaster, and she's working with Darth Vader and is just absolutely perfect. I loved that. I'd love to get more of the comic book action out there. So that's something we'll look forward to as well. We're going to wrap up. I can't let this go too long, but any other last things from either of you, that stuff you're super excited for?
I just want to throw out a little call to our members. If there's any book that y'all are really excited about, or a book that you really love, we'd love to hear from you, and just just let us know. I just love. I love just, even if it's just to take recommendations. Like if there's a Star Wars book we haven't mentioned or something y'all really love, just send us an email. Let us know. All that stuff's in the show notes, and we'd love to hear from you.
If I can just build on that, we are always open to all types of input, and especially when we're in seasons between Skeleton Crew and Andor, we've got some free time, some flexibility. If you guys have specific topics you want us to do episodes on, always send that in too. Or book recommendations, we can do an episode on it, something like that. Just let us know what you guys want to hear.
Yeah. And I'll say both, let us know your recommendations, but also we've not been very good at this. And by say we, I mean I, because this is my responsibility. But starting in February, I'm going to start putting out in advance, here's our topic for next week. Here's our topic for the week after. Here's the book club we're doing this month. So that way, you can read along with us or kind of catch up on it. And especially what we'd love is send us questions for us to discuss during the episode. If you read the book or you watch the show that we're going to be talking about that week, let us know what you thought. We'll read it on air. We'll discuss it on air. Be a great way to have you participate in the conversation.
I love a question. I love giving my opinion. Please ask questions.
Same.
I never would have noticed. And of course, this episode went out to everybody, but if you want more of the book club, all you have to do is become a member. $5 a month, $55 a year. You become a member to both this and the Superhero Ethics podcast. And we're now doing bonus content on that. The first one of those will have just gone out, I think, the same week that this episode goes out. On that one, we're talking about kind of the core issues that are at the heart of superhero ethics and that keep coming up again and again and again. And our first topic was on vengeance and vigilantism and how we feel about that in movies and TV shows and in real life. And so that's a great thing you get access to. You get ad-free episodes for both podcasts. You get bonus content at the end of most podcasts. Not at this one because this is a bonus episode, but most of the time you'll get some bonus content. And most of you get to help us keep the lights open. So we're so grateful to you. If you can become a member, think about it. Please do. Send in your questions, your thoughts. Everything about how to do that is in the show notes. But most importantly, we have spoken.
Stay classy, Moncala.
I don't know who the good guy are. Fuck.
We're having a day, y'all. Are you ready, Erin?
Breakdown.
You ready, Erin?
While Erin collects herself, I will say, in honor of the new season of Daredevil coming out, which we will definitely be covering on Superhero Ethics, my favorite line from the first season of Daredevil, and videos of cats.
Stay classy, Moncala.
I don't know who the good guys are anymore, but I do know what the enemy is. It's compromise of principles. You lose the war when you lose your principles. Karen Traviss.
Mic drop.
And so many other people today.